This month it's my birthday and I saw a lot of films. I'm going to talk about each of those from worst to best, so let's get going. I'm going to start with Venom. I saw Venom 2. It was fine. I honestly don't have very much to say about it. It was completely fine. My wife liked it a lot more than I did. I thought it was okay. It feels a lot like the first one did. I've seen a lot of people talk about how great it was, and I don't really get it. It was fine. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't particularly good either. I wouldn't say it was really much better than the first one. Like, the first one was also fine. But I remember people saying that was terrible. They struck me about the same. I feel no strong way about either of them. I was kind of looking forward to this one, just because I like Carnage. But Carnage isn't really in the film all that much. He's in it every now and again, and he more just kind of does stuff sometimes. There's a scene when he's having a conversation with, what's he called? Cletus Cassidy. There you go. He's having a conversation with Cletus, and they're just driving down the road and they're having a conversation, and at the end of the conversation, Carnage just throws a car off the bridge. That's it. Outside of the big fight scenes with Carnage, Carnage is basically not in the film. I don't know what I was expecting, rather. What would I expect Carnage to do? But Cletus is there, goes to a place, then has a fight as Carnage, and then they leave. And there's no, Carnage just going around destroying random shit, or anything like that. He's literally just, the first scene, he breaks out of prison. So there's one scene. Then he leaves and goes and finds someone. And then there's a fight scene at the place where he's finding them, and then he leaves. And then there's the final fight against Venom. And between those scenes, Carnage basically doesn't do anything. He throws one car off a bridge, and nothing else, really. I just would have liked to have seen Carnage just, causing chaos. Whereas he doesn't really. He just follows his goals and does those things, and then nothing else. It just felt a bit weird. I expected more Carnage. Other than that, though, it was fine. Again, it didn't really enthrall me all that much. It was totally okay. Then, there's Eternals, which I saw on the same day, and I feel very similarly about. It was also totally fine. I don't think it's as bad as everyone's making it out to be. I also don't think it was all that good, but it was fine. It did what it was supposed to do. It had some really cool visuals. I've read things people saying they found it hard to follow, and I have no idea why. I have no idea why people would not understand what happened in the film, or why people did the things that they did. The motivation seemed clear to me. You might assume that I like the characters and I have all this prior knowledge, and I don't. I know, next to nothing. I know, very basic stuff. I knew that they existed. But other than that, that was about it. I didn't know their powers, or their names, or how they were created, or why, or any of that. I knew a bit about Thanos, but that got retconned out of existence, although it kind of didn't, but it kind of did. That's weird. They said that it got retconned out that he wasn't an Eternal, and then it kind of got retconned back in that he is. They said going into it, he's not an Eternal, and then he might be an Eternal, but he might not be. It's weird. I think the best parts of the film were probably, the visuals were kind of cool at times, and they had these, cool flashbacks, because, basically the characters had been on Earth for, 7,000 years or something. So they were, during the main story, they would occasionally, flashback to, when they first arrived, or, specific points in the past that they'd been to and things had happened. And that was kind of cool. I liked most of those. I liked all of those. I just wish there were more of them, because they were kind of the more interesting parts of the film. It was just kind of cool seeing what they did. The issue I've got, basically, is with these two films, they were totally fine, so that I don't feel like I have much to say on them. They weren't offensively bad, and if they were, I'd have more to say, and they weren't amazing. They were both average. They were fine. I might watch both of them again, but I don't think I'd, intentionally do it. If I'm watching all of the Marvel films, then I'd watch them. Otherwise, I'm probably not going to. If they were on, I wouldn't turn it off, but I also wouldn't pay that much attention. I only saw 4 films, and 2 of them were average at best. I put it at Venom and then Eternals, in this, listing of worst to best, but that's actually just because that's the order I saw them in. I feel the same about both of them. They were both completely average and fine. A much better film, though, was Dune. I saw Dune earlier, and that was really good. I really enjoyed that. It is a bit strange. It's paced a bit weird. I understand it's the first half of a book, but it very much feels like the first half, in that it doesn't feel like it ends so much as it just kind of stops. I wish it had ended earlier. If you already know what happens, there's already been a film of this. The books are very old. So there's a bit where House Atreides are wiped out, and that feels like where they should have ended this film. But instead, it then goes on for another 40 minutes, and the main character starts a journey, and gets partway through the journey, and then the film ends, and it's weird. I kind of get why they did it, because it's got a more... Well, no, it's not even more emotional, it's just a different emotional ending. I kind of wish it had ended earlier, because it would feel better, but I suppose then they might have had to split it up into 3 films, or they might have worried they were stuffing too much into the second film. As it is, it kind of feels like it should end, and then it just carries on for longer. It's not bad, but it just feels like it could have done with something. I say it didn't feel like it ended, it just kind of stopped. One of the main characters in it can float, and I have no idea why. I found that kind of weird. The characters are shown as having I don't know, it's not exactly magic, but they have the voice and stuff like that. They can do stuff that isn't normal human stuff. But there is just one character, the Baron, who can float, and I don't know why. The first time you see him do it, I thought he had a giant robot snake body, tail, spine attachment thing. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. That made sense to me. But then there are 2 scenes later on in the film where he just is floating. And I don't understand why he can float. Because no one else in his house can float. Other people he's related to can't float as far as I'm aware. So I just don't know why this character can float. It made for interesting visuals, I suppose, but why can he float? The weirdest thing I found about the film, though, is that there are bulls. I realise that sounds not much of a complaint, but it's set on multiple different planets in space, millions of light years away. You know what I mean? It's not Earth. It's explicitly not Earth. I could assume that these are just species that evolved that look kind of like humans. But the fact that there are bulls is weird, especially because, as far as I remember, there are no other Earth animals. There are only bulls. So I forgot what the main character was called. I remember his last name, but I forgot his first name because it's just Paul, and it's just the most boring name. Paul's grandfather fought bulls. Why bulls? I get that it's so we know what a bull is, but we don't know what giant space worms are. The film has those. You know what I mean? You could make up some random fucking alien creature to have fought, and we would still understand the allegory, but actual bulls is weird to me. The thing that pulls me out of this film is not the giant space worm, it is the fact that there are bulls. It's the normal things that make me feel weird about this film. Everything else is so sci-fi that when you throw in a normal thing, I'm why? 2 other things that kind of bothered me. One of them is the way they say Harkonnen, just because I've always heard it a Harkonnen, and then in this film they say Harkonnen. It really bothered me at first. As we got further into the film, it bothered me less, and while I thought about it more, it kind of bothers me even less now. I still prefer Harkonnen, but that's probably just because that's what I'm used to. But I think Harkonnen does actually make more sense, just because of the way the word's spelled. The other thing is that the film looks amazing, 90% of the time. And then every now and again, they have a really weird composite shot. The layers just don't feel right. There is one scene very early on. A guy's coming down and delivering a proclamation from the Emperor, and they have to, accept it. So the ship lands, and the front door opens, and then a big ramp comes down, and the composite shot of this looks really bad. It's supposed to be it's black inside the ship just because it's dark, and then there are stood at the top of the ramp, but the entire time while the ramp's coming down, it doesn't look right at all. It looks really poorly put together. They don't look like they're in the shot. They don't look real anymore. They look just kind of like they were stuck on top of it, which is, literally how that works. But it just doesn't feel right. Besides that though, I enjoyed the film. I say, it's got the complaints that I've mentioned, but besides that, I really enjoyed it. My wife really enjoyed it. I think I'd go see it again, but maybe not anytime soon. The last film that I've seen in the last month though was No Time to Die, and that was really good. It's probably my favourite film that I've seen this year. I haven't seen a whole lot of films, if I'm being honest. I've seen about 27 films, TV show, like full TV shows, things like that. And if not the best film I've seen this year, it's definitely the best film I've seen this year that came out this year. But yeah, it was really good. It's probably, like I say, my favourite film of this year. I don't like James Bond films. I kind of liked the Pierce Brosnan ones, just because they were fucking weird at times. Like, I didn't think they were ever particularly great, I just kind of, like, was amused watching them. I've watched all the Daniel Craig ones, and I just didn't particularly like them at any point. I thought they were, like, fine, but I was never, like, excited to see one. And then this one was actually really good. It's probably, just because of that, probably my favourite James Bond film overall. But, like I said, that's not really much. Like, my next favourite James Bond film is probably, like, is it The World Is Not Enough? Or is it Tomorrow Never Dies? I always get confused. It's the one with the, like, Chinese broadcast company, and guy's got a stealth boat that is destroying other boats. Like, it's just fucking dumb, but I like it. So, like, that's the competition. Yeah, I think this is probably the best one. That being said, I actually don't think it's all that good. I realise that sounds really weird. What I mean is that, like, all the character stuff is great. All of the stuff that happens to James is really interesting. All of the stuff, like, James goes through is interesting. The actual, like, plot of the film, the bad guys' motivations, and, like what they're planning to do, the entire story is M's fault. So, like, if M hadn't done... Basically, they created, like, nanomachine robot virus that kills people, and it kills, like, only the target person, right? So, M has created this, and then the bad guy steals it and decides to use it. Now, if they hadn't done that, what would the bad guy have done? Like, it feels like they're trying to set it up as the bad guy is, like, this really big deal, but he also just kind of isn't. He's just backpacking off someone else's idea. All he did was wait for someone else to do some work, then steal it and decide to use it himself. It is incredibly unclear, like, how he has any power. At least, to me, it was. There's a bit early on where he kills someone's parents because they killed his parents. That makes sense. Then we flash forward, like, 30 years in the future, and for one thing, he looks exactly the same. He looks like he didn't age at all, which I'm very confused by. He was at least 10, 15 years, if not more. But he looks exactly the same. And for two, what did he do in all that time? From what I remember, that never gets explained. He does this one thing, and that's the only time we see him until he becomes a threat, and it never really gets explained what he does in the meantime. I'm sure they probably do. They probably, like, just go, oh, he does crimes everywhere, he's actually really evil. But, like, we've never heard of him before, and he doesn't seem like that big of a deal. I don't understand where he got the power from to do all this stuff. Like, what are his resources? But then there's a bit at the end where you go to an island, and he's just got, like, a full fucking army there, with, like, slaves and all sorts of shit. And I don't understand. Like, where did he get all this stuff? Where did he get an island from? Like, technically he gets the island because it was his parents' island or some shit. Something like that. I think the bad guy was just incredibly uninteresting. And they also don't use him very much. He's only in, like, a couple of scenes. Like, he's fine. No, he's not fine. He's, like, not all that interesting. The performance in those scenes is good, but villain themselves is incredibly uninteresting. There is just, like, nothing there to him. Like, I didn't care about him in the slightest. And like I say as well, it's all entirely M's fault. So M created this... I don't know, I'm a bit confused. I'm sure they called it nanomachines, but they also said it was a poison, so which is it? Is it both? Like, I don't mind if it's both, but I just want to understand. Unless they meant nanomachines in a more abstract sense. I don't really know. I might just be getting the nanomachines shit wrong. Either way, it's some sort of, like, genetic poison. But I'm sure it's like nanomachines. But then, if it's nanomachines, how are they growing it? So maybe I'm just wrong. I am, like, actually incredibly unclear on that. But if M hadn't done that, then the villain would have had no recourse to do anything else they were doing. And I don't understand where the villain's power came from. I think this all boils down to, like, a larger criticism I've got, where they made a decision about what would happen at the end of the film before they started. And then they wrote the film backwards. It's all to justify the ending they wanted, which I won't spoil, but you could probably guess. It's all to justify the ending, and then they wrote the film backwards to try and justify it. And by doing that, they've kind of like gone, oh, well, the bad guy needs this poison, and we want them to be like, have this conflict in the middle between like whether or not they can trust James or whether James can trust, why is it MI6? Fuck, I've forgotten, whatever, don't care. Where they can trust each other. And it feels like they just like decided how the ending should go, decided some like plot points in the middle, and then written the film backwards. And it feels like when you look at it like from the front to the back, there's a load of things where I just like, I don't understand where this has come from or why it would make sense. But if you look at it back to front, you can understand why they did it the way they did. That's the sort of like bad guy villain stuff. Like that's all the like ending the world sort of shit. Whereas all the like character stuff that happens to James is way more interesting. And I cared so much more about all that shit. Which again, I don't really want to spoil because like they've done a good job not spoiling any of it, so I don't want to talk about that too much. But like I don't feel bad spoiling that like the stuff the bad guy does and the stuff with the poison and the stuff with M, because that stuff was not interesting. Whereas the stuff that happens to James throughout the film, that's way more interesting. That's a much more interesting part. And so like I don't want to talk about that too much because like you should go see the film. It's a really good film. Except it's not a great film. It's just a really good like character study kind of. There's just like one really cool character and she's in it for one scene and she's just really good. I thought she was great. That's like all I've got to say. She's just a spy that helps James in one fight. She comes across really nervous at the start and then is just really fucking good the entire time, and then she leaves and that's like it. And it's like the only time you see her, and that is her entire interaction in the film is this like one 15-20 minute long scene, but it's just a really good scene and she's like really good throughout. It was like nice to see an actually interesting female character in the film for once. I suppose they've like tried to do that with all of these films, haven't they? The like Daniel Craig ones, but don't feel like they always succeeded. But she was cool, even if she wasn't in it very much. The only one other thing I've got to say about it is, and it's not really much of a criticism so much as something I just found a bit strange. There's a scene that's in the trailers where he's like walking through a forest, being chased by like people on like motorbikes and in jeeps and driving around him and all sorts of shit trying to find him in this forest. And it's like a really tense scene, except I kept getting dragged out of it because it's clearly supposed to be a motorcycle, but sounds like a dinosaur. And I was like, why is there a dinosaur in this forest? And like the entire time, there's just like dinosaur noises, and it was very strange. Like it was thoroughly amusing, but it did kind of drag me out of the scene a bit. Other than that though, it is really good. I would recommend people go and see it, especially, maybe not especially, but even if you're like me and not particularly interested in James Bond films overall, this was really good. Next month, or at least within the next 2 months, we're planning to go and see The Kingsman, Matrix 4, that I've forgotten what his name is, and the new Spider-Man film. So I don't think I'll see any of those before the next podcast, so I might talk about those after. But anyway, like, I do like going and seeing films. It's a pretty obvious statement. I talk about films a lot now, and who doesn't like going and seeing films? But obviously for the last like 2 years, you've not really been able to. So going and seeing them in the last few months has been nice. We've been doing a thing where we go and see 2 films like back to back. We just go to the cinema for like a day and see 2 films back to back, and it's kind of nice. If I go and see one film, I always come out of it and I feel like really tired, and I end up like not wanting to do anything else, and I have like no energy to do stuff. When I go and see 2 films, I'm just like, fine. Because 2 films is also long enough that I would just go home after like that much time out anyway. Like if I go to town, I'll spend like 6 hours or so in town and then come home. So if I go and see 2 films, that's about 6 hours and then just come home. So I don't feel bad for like not using more of my time out. But I also just like enjoy it more. And actually there was one funny thing that happened with Venom and Eternals. We saw both films back to back and we bought tickets and we ended up sat in the same seats in the same theatre for both films. So we didn't even have to move. They just swapped the film over and we just stayed sat there. It was great. Actually, speaking of last time we went to see films and stuff, we also went round our city's Christmas markets, because they do those every year. They actually still did them a little bit last year, but they were mostly cancelled. Whereas this year they're back and they're okay. I realise that sounds like I don't care, and it's weird because like I actually really do, and that's why I'm like not so big on them. Like I really enjoy them. But there's a couple of issues I've got with them, in that I think they're the biggest ones in the UK. And like they're some of the biggest in Europe, because they like take over the entire city. The issue I've got with it is that it's like blocked out in chunks. And you'll end up seeing like the same couple of places in like, and it just gets kind of boring. Like I would prefer it if every single stall was different. so you're always getting different stuff, but you'll go around and like see like the same couple of places every now and again, and like it doesn't happen a lot, and it's happened less this year than it did the last time I went, which is good, but it's still a bit too much. I would like it if there was way more variety. Did get a really good sandwich though. There was a place there that did like French dip sandwiches, and it was amazing. It's like one of the best sandwiches I've ever had. It's really good, and I'm planning to go back on Friday because it's my birthday this week. I'm going to go back to the same place because they also do a pastrami burger, and I'm really interested in that because I like pastrami. So yeah, I'm going to try that this time. Like, Christmas is like my favourite time of year, and the Christmas markets are one of my favourite parts of that. So it was really nice to just go around them again and do all of the stuff. Like, it was nice being able to for once. Well, I say for once, like, you know, after last year. Besides that, I've mostly just been playing a lot of games. I have played, not a whole lot, but quite a bit of Halo Infinite, and it is nice being back to a Halo game. I actually never played all that much of the multiplayer stuff, because I didn't re-buy the games when they came out on PC, and I never really had Xbox Live. So I only played online with people a couple of times. You know, like when you get the free trials in the boxes. So this is the first time when I've had like actual proper online experience with it. And for one thing, it feels so much better with a mouse and keyboard. But it's just like playing it, it's just like, I kind of miss Halo. Like, I didn't realise I missed Halo, but I kind of do. Halo was like always my favourite of the like multiplayer shooters. But I had PS Plus and I didn't have Xbox Live Gold. So when I played online, it was always like Call of Duty or something. And it just got to the point where I don't even like doing that. Playing FPS games on a console is awful. I don't get how people can play them with controllers. It feels terrible, and it just feels so much better on a mouse and keyboard. So I'm like actually really enjoying playing Halo. Not very good, I just like it. So it's nice going back to it. I've also been playing a lot of Pokemon remakes. Not tons, but about 5 or 6 hours into Brilliant Diamond at the moment. And it's really nice being back to like an old style one. You know, like before the changes they made with Sun and Moon. I don't feel tired. And what I mean is like, I really hated Sun and Moon. Because it just like, the pacing was awful. And this one just doesn't really have that issue. I also remember not liking them when I played it on the DS. And I don't know if it's just because I have played worse Pokemon games since that I'm looking back more favourably on this. Or if they have made changes. I know they've made some changes to it. But I'm enjoying this like a lot more. Like maybe this time I'll actually finish it. I remember thinking that the games are really slow. Not in terms of like the story, but in terms of like the combat and like leveling up and that. If anything, in this game, it's way too fast. Like, I'm having a lot of issues with my Pokemon outstripping the level cap. Because after they hit like a certain level, they'll like stop paying attention to you, especially if they're traded Pokemon. Or maybe it's only traded Pokemon, but I trade all of the starters to myself because I buy 2 copies of the games, for one for me and one for my wife. So I trade all the starters to myself anyway. I was running into a lot of issues where like I would be like way higher level. Like at the moment, I'm fighting like level 13, 14 Pokemon in like the trainer battles. But I'm like level 25, 30 nearly. The fights are no issue whatsoever. But I'm also getting to the point where like, if I don't hit the next gym soon, they're going to start ignoring me again. And that is bad. Like that just feels bad. Like sitting there and watching, like I had a thing the other day where my Monferno just got killed by a like level 6 Zubat or something. Because it just wouldn't do any attacks. And I was like, so the first time I was like, oh, we'll just do it next time. And then it just didn't. And then it just didn't. And then I started feeling this like resentment towards my Pokemon. And I was like, well, if you're not going to do it, I'm just going to sit here and let you die. And like, I realized it's like a really dumb way to feel about a load of like digital shit. You know what I mean? It's not even real, but I'm just like, I don't care. If you're not going to do it, I'm just going to let you die. But yeah, hopefully that won't be an issue going on. I'm just getting towards the 3rd gym now. I just unlocked the bike just before I started recording this. There was one other issue I've got with the game where the controls just feel a little bit weird sometimes. The movement is mostly fine, and then every now and again it just feels a little bit off. Like I'll move to go up and I'll go like slightly the wrong direction, or I'll move and it'll just take a little bit too long to start moving. It's the fact that it only happens every now and again that is what gets me. If it happened every single time, then I'd be like, oh, this game feels bad to play. But like 90% of the time, it feels fine. And then every now and again, I'll try and move, and I'll like either move in the wrong direction or move a little bit after I want to. And I'm like, wow, that just feels weird. Just like pulls me out like every now and again. Besides that though, I'm really enjoying it, and I'm looking forward to finishing it. I was playing Shin Megami Tensei at the same time, but I know they're not the same, but they're pretty similar, and Shin Megami Tensei 5 is going to be a lot longer than this. So I'm probably going to try and finish Pokemon first and then might go back to that. In terms of other games I've been playing though, that kind of rolls into my channel updates, I finished Disco Elysium, and that is a really good game. Like, I really enjoyed it. I'm glad that I waited until it had the full voice acting, although it's not full voice acting. There are like certain sections that aren't narrated, and I'm not sure why. Also, some of the sections of narration aren't the same as the text. Like, in some of those situations it makes more sense, but in others it's just different, or like completely wrong, and I had like no idea why. Like, it felt like it was playing the wrong lines. Like, obviously, if you're watching the videos, you'll see that. The thing that really bothered me is there is one quest in the game that bugged out on me, and I looked it up, and apparently other people have had the same issue, and it means that it is the only quest in the game that I got that I didn't finish. Well, that's kind of a lie, there are 2 others, but that was intentional that I didn't finish those. Whereas there is one quest in the game that I really wanted to finish and just couldn't, and I have no idea why. There was supposed to be an interactable in a place, and there wasn't. I'm being kind of vague, you'll see. It's a very good game. I feel a little bit worse about it now than I did when I first finished it. That being because I got the ending I got, and I was really interested, and then I looked it up and it turns out that there is no difference in the ending that anyone gets, and I was a bit bothered by that. I don't know what I was expecting. I wasn't really expecting the ending to be completely different, but I thought that something might have changed. I thought that events happened in mine that may not have happened for others, and it turns out that it's the same for everyone. If you already know, then you know. I was like a little bit bothered by that. I thought it would have been cool if it didn't, and the feelings that I got at the time are still valid, but because it turns out that it's the same for everyone, it feels less special to me now that I know that. This is also why it's one of the things where I don't play games more than once. I like getting the experience I get and then not doing that again. There's very few games where I have played more than once, and they also actually are very linear stories. Weirdly, I don't play games where you do choices differently very often. Except for, I did play through all the Infamous games twice, and the first Mass Effect twice. But that's because they've got like those binary choices, and in that it was literally do one playthrough all one way and one playthrough all the other. Whereas in these sorts of games where it's like different things can interact with the world in different ways, I'm weirdly less interested in replaying those. Whereas these games actually have more replay value, I have less interest in replaying them because I feel like the experience I got is my experience and that's how I want to leave it. When I've got my ending, I thought, oh wow, this could not have gone any better for me. This was like perfect for what I wanted. And then I had a look and it turns out that's basically the ending everyone gets. And I was like, oh. Like, that's cool, but I wish it had had more, like... It's weird, like, the emotional resonance I felt kind of felt like it got robbed from me just because it is actually the same as everyone else. I feel like I'm being, like, a little bit too critical of it for that. Like, I'm complaining about the game for not doing what it wasn't trying to do. It just would have been cool. I'm feeling a bit weird now, though, because I, like, don't know what to do. Like, I've been playing this game for somewhere around an hour a day for the last, like, 50 days. And now I'm not. And I just, like, don't know what to do with my time. I've been playing a lot of Pokemon, like I mentioned earlier, just because of it, because, like, I don't know what else to do. I need to find something else to do, but to give you some idea, 50 episodes means that this isn't going to end until January, which means, like, there isn't a whole lot of point in me starting recording something else right now. So I'm kind of just got free time for a bit, which is a weird experience for me at the moment. Besides that, Monster Hunter Rise is going pretty well, actually. What I said at the end of the last podcast basically just didn't end up being true at all. I had, like, no issues getting to where I needed to be in terms of my rank, and it went fine. I'm very upset, though, that I got my first failure. And I was, like, so upset, because it was literally the final quest of the fucking game. Well, I say literally. It was, like, the final quest of the story. There were more things afterwards, but it was, like, the final quest of the story, and it was my first cart in the entire game. Well, not my first cart, it was my first triple cart, which is, you know, when you fail a quest. I was so upset. Like, I've put 200 hours into their game, and I've done, like, 600 hunts. And that was the first one I failed. And it was the last one, and I was, like, so upset. I also, like, had some issues at the start, because Usually, when you unlock a thing, it says, oh, go and have this conversation next. And I was like planning on that happening, and I was just going to get to rank 50 and then wait for it to tell me go and have the next conversation, and then, start my next recording session with that conversation. But this one time, it threw me straight into a conversation afterwards, and I was not prepared for it. So I had to use the Switch's built-in recording system, and it didn't work properly. So I managed to capture everything, but it didn't look right, and it was a fucking nightmare. I managed to do it. It doesn't look great, but it was the only thing I could do, and it really bothered me because it was literally like 200 hours into a game. It's not like I'm going to replay the entire fucking game just so I can capture this one conversation again, but I'm still pissed that it happened at all. The edit that I did looks not great, to be honest, but otherwise I would have had nothing, so it was the best I could do. As it is now, I'm trying to get to rank 100. I think I'm currently about 70. So now it's going to be... What I usually do is, during the week, I will just, play the game and, grind out armor sets. And then, on the weekends, when an episode goes up, I record a new one to replace it, essentially. So, what I'm going to be doing now is that. I'm going to be grinding out the armor sets, because grinding the armor sets also increases your rank. And then, on the weekends, I'll be playing through the remaining, side quests. I'm also probably going to do the event quests, depending on if I reach 100 or not. Eventually, I'll reach 100, obviously, but what I mean is, if I have grinded all the armor sets and done all the side quests, still not got to 100, then I'll do all the event quests as well. Otherwise, I might not do the event quests, or I might just do the event quest later or something, I don't know. But yeah, that's kind of the plan with that for now. Finally, I have finished Shadowbringers. Kind of a lie, but it's also kind of not. I finished the Shadowbringers expansion, and as of today recording, I have finished all the way up to 5.5. Tomorrow, I'm going to go do 5.55, and then I'll be done. I think it's probably my favourite expansion. If it's not my favourite, it's the second favourite after Heavensward. I'm a little bit up in the air on it right now. I might see how I feel tomorrow, but right now it's either my favourite or my second favourite. I like the presentation of this a lot. I like the music. The music's really good, as I've been over. But it's also got a load of stuff I don't like all that much. I miss job quests, actual job quests. And they're not in Shadowbringers, and not only are they not in Shadowbringers, apparently they're not going to be in Endwalker. I'm just really upset by that, because job quests are great. The role quests are fine, I kind of understand why there weren't job quests in it, because of how the story works. But at the same time, I miss them, and I like them. They got replaced with the role quests, but I also don't like that the role quests are per group, kind of. I want an individual one. And I don't get that. It's just I want an individual one for each class, but instead, each class set gets their role quest and that's it. And I get it, but I wish it was better. Not better, it's not that this is bad, I just wish there was more. Also, there's so many cutscenes. It's actually kind of ridiculous just how many cutscenes there are. I can't say I don't like the cutscenes, because it's not even a matter of that. It's just quite a lot of the quests, and especially in the patches, have just been go to one place, watch a cutscene, then go to another place and watch another cutscene. And when they're 10, 15 minute long cutscenes each time, spending half an hour just watching something is not what I want to be doing. I like doing stuff. People don't like the base game. And I really like the base game, because I don't feel like there is that much just going and watching a cutscene. I don't mind watching a cutscene, at the end of a quest, and then carrying on and doing something else, and then, getting another one then. As long as there's, a reasonable amount of gameplay that breaks it up. Just, going and doing stuff, or, combat, or, especially dungeons. Dungeons, obviously, but, I get why they're not every time, but, something. But when it's just, you start off with, a 10-minute long cutscene, then go and have a conversation with someone else, and then it's another 10-minute long cutscene, and especially when it's the whole, you'll start a cutscene, and it'll be a full voiced cutscene, and then it'll stop into a non-voiced cutscene, and then it'll stop into a in-world conversation. And I'm just can we not have just relayed all this information better? Or can it not be a better spread out? There's a lot of just massive dumps of conversations, or just information, and it's I like the information, but I like it spread out a bit more. And I don't want to be sat here for 40 minutes doing absolutely nothing while a cutscene plays. And oh my god, the times when you watch a cutscene and then it ends and goes, meanwhile, in this place, and you go and watch that cutscene. There is one of those where, I think it's like the end of like patch 5.3 or something, you have a cutscene, and then at the end it says, I want to say like, meanwhile in Northrant, the first one. And then that one ends, and then it goes, meanwhile in Garlemald, and it's just like, sending you to all these different places, giving you all of these cutscenes, and I'm like, can we not have had these cutscenes somewhere else? Could we not have had these cutscenes spread out a little bit more, please? I understand why they do it more at the end of the patches and stuff, but God, I just wish they were spaced out better. I wish there was more stuff to do in between them as well. I know other people who really enjoy the cutscenes, and it's not that I think the cutscenes are bad, I just get like actually tired sitting there watching them for like 40 minutes long doing absolutely nothing. Other than that though, it's pretty good. I am looking forward to Endwalker coming out, although I am not sure at all what I'm going to use for the assets for it. So like, you know, like there was Chocobolden, and then Midgard's Holden, and Nama's Holden, and now there's the Great Serpent of Ronk Holden, and I have no idea what to do for my next one. It's the first time when I can't just like look at the wiki and see it like the races that are in this thing, or like the new beast types, or cute minions. Like literally, like there is nothing I can just look at. So like, I don't know what to do. There's like little things I can look at, like there's like trailers and stuff, but the trailers are more like story stuff than... Maybe there's some that look at all the beast tribes that I just haven't found. Maybe I should look. To be honest, I say like haven't found. I don't look at things until I know I can. So what I mean is like, technically right now I don't feel comfortable doing it just because I've not actually beaten Shadowbringers. You know, I've got 5.55 to do. Tomorrow afternoon I will be able to look a lot more freely and I'll be like less bothered by it. I do have one idea what I might do, but it'll just be really fucking dumb if I go with it. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I've enjoyed what I've done. I don't know what to do after this finishes. There is a good chance that I will be finished with Endwalker by, like, if not the end of December, definitely the end of January. And then I don't know what to do. There's, like, getting all the classes to 80, but that's not really something I need to do on stream, is it? Like, I suppose I could just do, like... I'll probably do all of the side quests. And then I will probably do... What else can I do? I would like to do all of the side quests and get all of my classes up to the cap, which at the moment is 80, but will be 90. So that'll like open up new stuff for me to do. But a lot of that is just going to be leveling stuff, which means stuff that I won't be doing on stream. So I don't know what I'll do. For one thing, I don't know what would replace it at the moment. But for two, I also don't know if I'd feel the same way about the game if I wasn't also doing it on stream at the same time. Like, I really enjoy streaming it. I suppose I could just do all my leveling on stream. It's not like it's a big deal, but I just feel like that's not also the most interesting content, is it? Because it's mostly just going to be watching me run prey, like, over and over again. That's not the best thing to see, is it? I don't know. I've got more time to think about it, but maybe I'll do some other LP. Maybe I'll do Star Wars The Old Republic. That's a joke. I won't be doing that. What I will be doing, though, is my outro. Special thanks to all of my patrons. You can join them over at patreon.com/Holden Gatsby, and for $1 a month you'll get to see what I'm working on early, get exclusive roles in my Discord, along with other rewards you might think of. You can also just follow me there if you want to for free, as it's probably the best place to see all of my content as soon as it's available. There's links to the Patreon along with my Discord, Twitter, Twitch, and all the other podcast platforms in the description for this episode. Finally, don't forget you can email me using podencastby@gmail.com if you've got anything you want to say. Thanks for sticking around. Bye. Special thanks to my patrons, Justin Wood, Hobbs, Koopy Vegeta, Gunrunner, Water, and Bat. You can join my patrons at patreon.com/Holden Gatsby, follow me on Twitter @Holden Gatsby, and follow my Twitch at twitch.tv/Holden Gatsby. Don't forget to subscribe to both of my channels. Thanks for watching. Bye.